She posted a picture at the beach. Wide smile, new bikini, a caption about new beginnings. 17 comments from friends calling her a queen. 3 men you've never seen liking the photo in less than 5 minutes. And there you are, staring at it on your phone at 2 in the morning, feeling a tightness in your chest you can't quite explain. Because you know that 6 months ago, she was crying in the bathroom saying you didn't make her happy anymore. That the marriage was dead. That she needed to find herself. And now? Now she looks like the freest person in the world. But there's something no one tells you. Something that happens after the suitcases leave the house, after the papers are signed, after she blocks you on half her social media and keeps you on the other half just to make sure you see how well she's doing. There's a process. A brutal psychological cycle that every person who leaves a stable relationship goes through. And it doesn't matter how much she swears it was the best decision of her life. It doesn't matter how many stories she posts. This process will happen. The first phase begins the exact moment she closes the door for the last time. It's euphoria. The feeling of having taken control of her own life after years of feeling trapped. She wakes up without having to explain herself. Goes out without telling anyone. Comes home whenever she wants. And for the first time in a long time, she feels desired. Because the men show up. They always show up when a woman becomes single. Messages in her DMs. Pickup lines at bars. Glances in the grocery store. And she interprets every one of these signs as validation. As proof that she made the right decision. Her friends celebrate. They plan happy hours. Invite her on weekend trips. Tell her she's glowing. That she should have done this sooner. And she believes it. She deeply believes she'd been living in a prison and has finally found freedom. She buys new clothes. Changes her hair. Downloads dating apps. And every match, every chat, every superficial date feeds the narrative that life without you is infinitely better. During the first few weeks, maybe the first few months, she sleeps peacefully. She doesn't miss you. She doesn't question anything. When someone asks about you, she answers with a sigh of relief, "I'm so much better now." And it's true. In that moment, she really believes it. Because the human brain has a powerful defense mechanism, it rewrites history to justify its own choices. Everything that was good in the marriage becomes mediocre in her memory. Everything that was mediocre becomes unbearable. And you? You become the villain who kept her from being happy. She tells her friends distorted versions of what happened. Exaggerates your flaws. Downplays the good moments. Turns small arguments into major traumas. And the more she repeats that story, the more she believes it. Because she has to. Because the alternative would be admitting that maybe she made a huge mistake. And at this stage, that's unthinkable. The first dates are exciting. Dinners at new restaurants. Conversations about dreams and plans. Sex without routine. She feels alive. She feels young again. And every new experience reinforces the idea that she made the right choice. She posts pictures. Tags locations. Leaves digital traces to make sure you see them. Because deep down, she still needs your reaction. She needs to know you're seeing her happy. That you're hurting. That you lost. But there's something happening underneath all that euphoria. Something she hasn't noticed yet. Reality is starting to crack through the fantasy. Those men who seemed so interested? They disappear after the third message. Or worse, they only want one thing. The dates that seemed promising reveal immature, taken, emotionally unavailable men. And slowly, without realizing it, a question begins to form in the back of her mind. If you're enjoying this content, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Because what comes next is even more intense. The second phase arrives without warning. One day she wakes up and realizes the euphoria isn't the same anymore. The dates start to feel exhausting. The conversations get repetitive. She realizes she's telling the same stories, hearing the same empty promises, dealing with the same patterns as always. And for the first time since she left home, she feels a pang of something strange. It's not longing. Not yet. It's discomfort. It's the feeling that something isn't fitting the way it should. She starts to compare. Not on purpose. No one wakes up thinking, "I'm going to compare my ex to this guy I just met." But it happens. Automatically. That new guy who seemed so interesting turns out to live with his mother at 35. The other one who seemed mature disappears for 3 days without explanation. And then there's the one who seemed perfect, until he opens his mouth and talks about his ex for 2 straight hours. And in the middle of these frustrating experiences, her mind does something inevitable. It looks for references. And the strongest reference she has? It's you. She catches herself thinking things she would never admit out loud. At least he was responsible. He never let me down. He knew my family. And each of these thoughts comes with immediate guilt, because admitting them would mean questioning her decision. It would mean accepting that maybe she threw away something valuable. So she does what the human brain does best, rationalizes. Convinces herself that she's being too picky, that she needs to give more chances. That the problem isn't the dating scene, it's her, she just hasn't adjusted yet. Her friends stay excited. They keep arranging outings. But something has changed. They have their own lives. Husbands. Kids. Routines. And little by little, she realizes those happy hours weren't really about her. They were about them escaping their own lives for a few hours. And when she calls at 11 at night wanting to talk, she hears, "Sorry, I have to wake up early tomorrow." And for the first time, she feels truly alone. The dating apps become work. Every conversation takes energy. Every date requires emotional preparation. Makeup. Clothes. Expectations. And when nothing works out, when the guy disappears or turns out to be completely different from his profile, she comes home exhausted. And the empty apartment greets her with silence. There's no one to talk to about her day. No one to ask if she's eaten. And that emptiness starts to weigh on her. She tries to fill it. Gym. Classes. New hobbies. She posts about self-care and self-love. But behind the motivational posts, there's a truth she doesn't want to face. She's tired. Tired of starting from zero with every new person. Tired of explaining her story. Tired of pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. And the worst part? She can't admit this to anyone. Because everyone believed the story she built. Everyone thinks she's living her best life. At this stage, the first signs of disguised regret appear. She's stalked your profile. Not once. Several times. She saw that you lost weight. That you're going out more. That you look good in photos. And that creates a huge conflict. Because part of her wanted you to be destroyed. Wanted to prove that you needed her more than she needed you. But you're not destroyed. You're moving on. And that corrodes something deep inside her. She starts to reinterpret the past. Remembers good moments she'd erased from memory. That trip. That dinner. That time you took care of her when she was sick. And those memories come back at the worst moments. When she's alone on the couch. When yet another date goes wrong. When she realizes no one knows her the way you did. But even then, she pushes those thoughts down. Buries them. Because acknowledging them would be devastating. The kids, if there are kids, start asking questions. Why don't we live with Dad anymore? Are we ever going to be a family again? And each question is like a stab. Because she has to keep up the narrative. Has to convince the children that everything's fine. That Mom and Dad are happier apart. But the kids feel it. They feel the tension. They feel the sadness disguised as freedom. And they carry that in a way she hasn't fully realized yet. The bill comes due. Literally. Because maintaining a household alone is different from splitting expenses. Because those trips she posted about? They went on the credit card. Because keeping up the appearance of a spectacular life has a high price. And when money gets tight, when she has to make tough choices, another layer of the fantasy falls away. And she realizes that freedom also means total responsibility. It means having no one to share the weight with. Something unexpected happens. She finds out you're seeing someone. Not because you told her. But because someone saw it. Or because it showed up in a photo. And her reaction is visceral. Anger. Jealousy. A pain in her stomach she didn't expect to feel. Because in her fantasy, you were waiting. You were available in case she changed her mind. But you're not. And that breaks something fundamental in the emotional structure she built. The third phase is the collapse. It's when the mask falls and she can no longer sustain the lie. Not even to herself. She wakes up at 4 in the morning with a tight chest. She grabs her phone. Types a message. Deletes it. Types again. Deletes again. She sits there in the dark, holding the phone like a lifeline, knowing she can't send that message but desperate to make contact. Because loneliness is no longer a fleeting feeling. It's permanent. It's suffocating. She tries to keep up appearances. Continues posting. Continues smiling in photos. But those who know her for real can tell. The eyes don't lie. Posting frequency decreases. Captions get shorter. And when someone asks how she's doing, the answer comes too quickly, great. Too quickly to be true. Because someone who's really okay doesn't need to state it with such conviction. Dates are torture now. She sits across from another stranger who talks about himself without stopping. Who doesn't ask relevant questions. Who treats the date like a job interview or an audition for the bedroom. And she smiles. Nods. Pretends to be interested. But inside, she's screaming. Thinking about how you always asked about her day. How you remembered the small details. How you truly listened. Comparison is constant now. Relentless. Every new man is measured against you. And they all fail. Not because you were perfect. Far from it. But because you were real. You were known. You were safe. And she traded security for excitement. Traded depth for novelty. And now she realizes excitement lasts 3 weeks and novelty ages in 3 months. Her friends start to drift away. Not on purpose. But she became that person who only complains. Who only talks about bad dates. Who is always available because she has nothing else to do. And no one wants to be friends with the desperate person. The person who drags everyone down. So invitations decrease. Messages become more spaced out. And she realizes she was mistaking politeness for true friendship. She starts drinking more. Or taking sleeping pills. Or spending hours scrolling through feeds without really seeing anything. Anything to avoid being alone with her own thoughts. Because her thoughts are cruel now. Accusations. Unanswered questions. What did I do? Why did I do this? How do I fix it? And the scariest answer of all, maybe she can't. She tries one last move. Sends that message. Something casual. Hi, how are you? I watched that series you recommended. Thought of you today. And waits. Every minute without a reply is an eternity. When you finally respond, she analyzes every word. Every period. Every emoji choice, or lack thereof. Tries to decipher if there's still a chance. If you still feel anything. But your reply is polite. Distant. Cordial but cold. And she understands the real message. You moved on. You're no longer trapped in that place of pain and confusion she created. And that realization is devastating. Because it means the door really closed. That the maybe space no longer exists. That you built a new life where she has no place. Depression arrives in full force. Not that fleeting sadness. Clinical depression. She doesn't want to get out of bed. Doesn't want to see anyone. Cancels appointments. Stops replying to messages. And when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't recognize the person staring back. Because that radiant woman from the first months is gone. All that's left is someone tired. Aged. Lost. She starts doing mental calculations. How long you were together. How many memories you built. How much of her life is intertwined with you. And she realizes it's not just years. It's identity. It's history. It's context. You weren't just a partner. You were a witness to her life. And she erased that witness thinking she would write a better story on her own. The kids notice. Ask why she cries in the shower. Why she has no patience anymore. Why she's always tired. And she has no answer. She can't say, because mommy destroyed our family based on a fantasy. So she lies. Says it's fine. Just work stress. But they know. Kids always know. Internal bargaining arises. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. If he gave me one more chance, I'd be a different person. If I could erase these months, I would. But she can't. Actions have consequences. Choices carry weight. And she is carrying the full weight of the choice she made in that moment of illusory euphoria. Visits to the psychologist become routine. She talks about self-discovery when she's really talking about regret. Talks about growth when she's really talking about destruction. And the psychologist listens. Takes notes. But she knows there's no remedy for a wrong decision. No therapy that erases what's been done. There's only learning to live with the consequences. The fourth phase is acceptance. But not the inspiring kind you see in movies. It's the painful acceptance that some choices have no turning back. She looks at the calendar and realizes a year has passed. Or two. And in that time, you not only moved on. You evolved. Became the man she always wanted you to be. More secure. More present. More balanced. But now you are that person for someone else. She finally understands something fundamental. It wasn't you who was wrong. It was her. She projected all her personal dissatisfaction onto the marriage. Confused boredom with incompatibility. Believed that changing partners would solve internal problems. And now she's alone with the same problems, only without the support of someone who truly cared. The narrative she created begins to completely collapse. She stops blaming you. Stops inventing flaws you didn't have. And when she's alone, she admits truths she would never say out loud. You were good. You were reliable. You were building something real while she was chasing fantasies sold by social media and single friends for 15 years. She realizes she confused stability with monotony. Interpreted predictability as lack of passion. Thought mature love was dead love. And now she knows the difference. Because those exciting dates from the first months were superficial. They were chemistry without substance. Fireworks that burn bright and disappear quickly. And you? You were the bonfire. Burned steadily. Provided warmth. Lasted. People around her start to change their stance. Those friends who encouraged the separation now stay silent when she complains. Because they know. They know she threw away something valuable. They know the problem wasn't you. They know she's paying the price for believing that the neighbor's grass is always greener. And no one says, I told you so, but it's there unspoken in every look of pity. She tries one last desperate move. Calls. Sends a long message. Talks about growth, about having learned, about wanting to talk. And your response is kind but definitive. You wish her the best. Truly. But that chapter is over. You invested in yourself. You worked on your flaws. Not to win her back. To become a better version of yourself. And eventually, for someone who values that from the beginning. The harshest lesson arrives when she finally stops fighting. When she accepts that she created a problem with no solution. Because relationships aren't glasses you break and glue back together. They're plants. They need constant care. And she uprooted the plant thinking she would find a prettier flower in the market. But the market only sells seeds. And she no longer has the patience to plant. Nor the energy. Nor the hope. She learns that freedom without purpose is just loneliness with another name. That empowerment without responsibility is disguised immaturity. That you don't find happiness by changing partners. You find it by working on yourself alongside someone willing to do the same. And she had that. She had you. But she was too busy looking outward to value what she had at home. Years pass. She eventually builds some stability. Maybe she finds someone. Maybe not. But she carries that invisible mark forever. That what if. That decision that defines the rest of her life. Because she didn't just lose you. She lost the version of herself that existed with you. Lost the family you built. Lost years that won't come back. Lost the chance to grow old with someone who knew every version of her. And the final irony? She became exactly what she criticized in you. She's trapped. Only now trapped in her own choice. Trapped in the pride that won't let her fully admit the mistake. Trapped in the narrative she created and can't contradict without collapsing. You were the prison she wanted to escape. But it was a prison with open doors. She just didn't realize it. The real lesson isn't that divorce is wrong. Many relationships need to end. Toxic relationships. Abusive. Truly dead. But many others end because someone believed the lie that something better is waiting out there. That life is a movie where someone more interesting always appears in the third act. It's not. Real life is construction. It's work. It's choosing someone every day. Growing together. Turning predictability into comfort, and comfort into home. She realized too late that she wasn't unhappy with you. She was unhappy with herself. And no divorce fixes that. No new person fills the internal void. You can change partners 1,000 times, but you'll carry the same problems into every new relationship. Until you learn that the work is internal. And when she finally learned that, you had already learned it too. Only you learned by growing. She learned by losing. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel. This type of content needs to reach more people. Because maybe someone will watch it before making an irreversible decision. Maybe someone will realize the problem isn't the partner. It's the illusion sold by a culture that confuses happiness with novelty. And novelty always ages.